Hi lads, thanks for tuning into the podcast again. Don't forget to like and subscribe and head over to the Patreon to contribute and help us out. Thanks a million and enjoy the podcast. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Two Norries Podcast. As always, I am joined by my good friend Timmy Lang.
Hi everyone.
My name is James Leonard. My cousin Rowan is on the decks. Hi Rowan.
Hello.
And this week we have a dub. Because the restrictions are lifted, we can travel inter-county. So down from Dublin on the train is Mr. Mick Finnegan. That's the crack, Mick.
Oh, the crack's 90, lads. The crack is 90. Yeah, it's good to be here, you know. It's like going on my holidays, getting the train there earlier on today, you know, just kind of cabin fever, just kind of, you could only go, a 5k, and then it was like, you could only stay inside your county. And then I was on the train, I felt like Richard Kimball, you know what I mean? I'm just legging it. Like, freedom.
I know, yeah. And as much as we love Cork people, we were getting sick of Cork people, weren't we? But it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
No, delighted to have you on. So, for the people that don't know you, who are you and where are you from?
Well, I'm from Dublin, grew up in the inner city.
What part?
Between Dubliner Avenue and Dolphin's Barn, you know, I kind of knocked around Crumlin, which is like the flats. And love growing up there. It was a bit mad, you know. It was just, you know, people just didn't care, you know. It was real kind of, what are you looking at? You know, it's like, but you know, I loved kind of growing up there, and it was a great kind of you know, great experience, real sense of community growing up in, you know, in the inner city. People look out for each other and that type of thing. And yeah, you know,
big family.
Yeah, well, I'm the oldest of four. My ma is I think she's the oldest of like 16.
Jeez.
Yeah,
big family, yeah.
Loads, like the O'Sheas. Like, my ma raised them all, so like they're like all kids. Because my granny and granddad would have went to work.
Yeah.
So
there's a bit of Cork in you, is there?
There's a bit of, you know, well, Kerry.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, the O'Sheas. Yeah, apparently I was doing a bit of research on it, and they were fishermen off the west coast and all this jazz, and they came up to Dublin to work on the docks, to kind of manage the docks and all that type of thing. And my great-great-granddad, Thomas O'Shea.
Thomas, there's an Irish name, lads.
And there's a picture of him, and he just looks, no joke, like, everyone's like, geez, that looks a bit like him.
Thomas O'Shea is
If I was 50, like, I'm looking like, geez, look forward, a big fat red cheese on him, you know, a big fisherman's hat.
Had he red hair as well?
Yeah, they all
really?
Yeah, red hair or my ma's red hair. Most of my aunties, I think, had red hair.
Yeah.
Some of the uncles would have had red hair as well, you know. And yeah, it was a big family. Yeah, like it was an interesting family, you know. And I think, you know, because of my own circumstances, it probably wouldn't be fair to kind of discuss that any further. Of
course.
Just purely because,
yeah,
you know, they're not here to defend themselves, and you know, it's easy to kind of, you know, slag people off that are dead, or you know, or people 100%. That make poor lifestyle choices.
We're only interested in your story, anyway, to be honest.
Well,
it's
thanks,
just, we just get a bit of context.
Yeah.
You're from Dublin 8, is it?
Grew up in the inner city, Dublin 8,
big family. What was it like?
Dublin 8, Dublin 12, big family.
What was it like in school?
Yeah, I was always messing. No, I wasn't like a bully.
Yeah.
I was just like
class clown.
Pretty much, yeah. Just always taking the piss, not taking things seriously.
You're in good
Probably
company.
still a bit like that, you know what I mean? Like,
you're in good company, or any I'd say the class clown thing.
Look, I used to sit in the back of the class and be like, purposely like do things like I used to do this thing where I could do this whistling, but really kind of low pitch, and I used to drive the teacher. I'm mental. I'd be like, he'd be like, who's doing that? I'd be having stitches like over that, and then I used to get like kicked out and suspended detention, and then I was in different skills. In, you know, I always joke about it, but you know, I left due to kind of creative differences.
Like an artist would leave an agent.
Pretty much. But no, I was fucked out. Like, went to like a couple of schools in Crumlin, then I ended up at school. Then the school that kind of knocked a bit of shape into me was a school in Ballyfermot, which is like it's in Dublin West, kind of on the out, not far from town, but not in the inner city. And I used to get the 18 bus from Crumlin to Ballyer. And you're on the bus for about 40, 50 minutes, and I'm not from the area. So like getting off the bus and be running to the class or to the school, because the kids would be fucking saying, who the fuck is, get him. And I'd be like, trying to run, fucking the size of me. I was about 20 stone when I was fucking 2. Do you know what I mean? I was like trying to barrel down the road, and I used to always get the shit kicked out of me because I wasn't from the area. And then you end up kind of fighting, and then eventually when you keep fighting them back, they leave you alone, and then they're like, oh, well, you're one of us now.
Yeah.
You're still a prick though. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, it was good. Like, you know, I enjoyed kind of the skill, because that skill kind of gave me, being honest with you, kind of probably gave me a bit of kind of aspirations, you know, because it was the first place I kind of where teachers were encouraging you. You know, like I remember like doing like the junior cert there, and the history teacher, Miss Leonard.
Good name.
Yeah. Any
Probably
relation?
Probably all the Leonards that I'm related to our Dubs.
Yeah. So like I was there anyway, and she was like, you should think about doing higher level history. And I was like, nah, you're grand, like, and whatever. And I did it. You know, she really pushed me, really trying to, and I always remember that. You know, not just settling for all that, and then, you know, kind of me school, and then kind of took a bit of a nose dive because I ended up on the streets. So,
do you know, around this time, would it be fair to say Dolphin's Barn had its challenges and that area in terms of drug use and...
Oh, massive, yeah. Like, there was a big kind of heroin, IV drug use, kind of, you know, I remember vividly kind of stepping over syringes, going down the stairs in the flats, you know, and, you know, people were injecting or smoking quite a lot of drugs at the time. Because the whole area was just flooded with heroin. And, you know, you experience it and you're looking at it and you think, Jesus, this is... And even all members of my own family, you know, my little brother passed away 3.5 years ago, before he was in December from a heroin overdose.
Sorry,
in a homeless hostel in Dublin, you know.
It's sad, isn't it?
Oh, it's heartbreaking, you know. But I never really knew him, you know, because I was out of a family home at quite a young age. So for me, it was kind of like, I was devastated that I never got to know my brother as a man.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That I never got to sit down and have a pint with him or chat to him about relationships, or, you know, maybe help him out and that type of thing. You know, I never knew him as an adult. And
the thing is as well, because he was on drugs and like he probably never got the chance to be a man. You know, like when you think about it, when somebody is on drugs, they're not who they really are, you know. And when that person dies, not as just who they are, but everything they could have ever been. Do you know what I mean?
That is what it, yeah.
Like any potential. Let's say, for example, if I died when I was 27, do you know, there'd be no podcast, there'd be no master's degrees and PhDs or jobs or wives or you know, all these, all the potential that you have, that you're doing, Timmy, Rowan, everything that you have ahead of you dies with you. You know, so it's just so tragic when it's so young, isn't it? Oh,
it's heartbreaking, you know. I remember kind of, you know, turning up to the funeral, and it was just absolutely devastating. Yeah. You know, and even going back to where I'm from, you see the same people wearing the same clothes, sitting in the same spots, doing the same things, talking about the same shit. And it's just like, you know, devastating. Really is kind of just heartbreaking. I keep saying that a lot, but it was.
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
You're speaking the truth, because it's people in these areas don't have that awareness to know that you can actually get out of there. But you need a certain amount of awareness, and sometimes that awareness comes from a rock bottom, from drug abuse, you know, or some other situation, you know. So that's how it actually works. You need that little glimpse of awareness. If you're not, or even if you're brought out of that environment for a certain amount of time, and you see different people living a different life, that shows you that there is a different life then as well. But if you're in the norm, your norm, which is drug abuse, violence, in all these different areas, you're not going to know anything else.
No, you're not. And like, I remember, like, you know, when I got off the streets, you know, and I went to London, I was working over in London, and, you know, I was living with these two lads, and they were like, one was a South African guy, one was from New Zealand, and, you know, and I was like I was still wearing tracksuits and Air Max and thinking I was like fucking deadly. But I was thinking, actually, no one in London dresses like this, and I look like I'm still 15. Because they were taking the piss out of me, because I was like, because I thought, well, I'm wearing what I would normally wear anywhere. And the boys were like, no, we have to take you shopping, come on. And they were taking me around to buy chinos, deck shoes, shorts. And I hadn't a clue about that stuff.
Yeah.
Did not have a clue about, like, you know, wearing, I'd say big clothes, but like wearing clothing that was appropriate for the workforce.
Yeah.
You know, I was still kind of not trapped in it, but I was still kind of in that kind of, sure, I'm grand, I'm only walking, doing this.
I remember when I was in our very early recovery, not long out of treatment, and I was doing a C scheme in an office building, you know. But I came in one day out of hours, like I wasn't working. I came in going to HR for something. I was wearing a tracksuit and a pair of Air Max, like what you're talking about. No, still the old kind of mentality, you know. And when the staff friend says, "Oh, you're going to the gym?" And I was like, "Going to the gym?" Because they associate this clothes with going to the gym. So no, this is where I wear all the time. Because afterwards, I was thinking, yeah, maybe it's time to grow up a small bit, you know.
It does happen. Like I went early recovery as well. You know, I said, I'm not wearing the tracksuit and the runners anymore. My wife was looking at me saying, Jesus Christ, I have a bag of tracksuits, brand new tracksuits here, runners for you, like, you know, and now you're telling us that you're not wearing them anymore.
And the thing is, the tracksuits weren't cheap.
No.
They're like 200 quid a pop.
Oh, yeah, and the shoes.
And the trainers you're talking, like, you wouldn't wear anything on your feet for less than 90 quid.
Yeah.
But you know what? What's probably a bit annoying about all that is, in our culture, this is the height of fashion. But that culture is looked down on, is less than when you're in other contexts, like more middle class. They look at you and they see the tracksuit and the Amex and it's a label over your head. And then when you're in an environment like that where you're the only one wearing, you start to feel a bit embarrassed and a bit ashamed. And then before you know it, you're wearing chinos and fucking decks and shorts that you wouldn't dream of wearing, but you just don't want to stand out. Do you know? Do you want to tell us a little bit about, we go back to, you said that you were on the streets at a young age.
Yeah.
How young, and did you finish school early or?
Yeah, like, I think it was just, you know, there was a breakdown in the family home due to kind of, I'll be honest, I was abused as a kid. I joined the John's Ambulance to kind of get a bit of identity. And
What's the John's Ambulance?
John's Ambulance is like a first aid organisation. It's a national organisation that provides first aid.
They'd be at the soccer matches
all
and
the
stuff.
soccer matches and you know, Funderland, the Aviva, Crow Park, Turner's Cross probably.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They'd be there providing first aid pretty much free of charge for the community. And I joined because I wanted to learn a new skill, and I thought maybe I could get a job out of it. I could be a paramedic. You know, deep down I wanted to be a guard, but if I said that out loud, I would have the head kicked off. I want to be a guard. You know what I mean?
What age were you then?
When I joined the John's Ambulance, I was about 12.
Yeah.
And then the guy who ran the unit that I joined in the inner city, he was a predator. You know, and he was targeting kids from socio-economically deprived areas. Because if a kid from that area opened their mouth, they're less likely to be believed than someone from, you know, somewhere that's more affluent, you know. And for years this guy was just fucking grooming me, you know, sexualizing the first aid training, and up until a point, you know, when I was a bit older, he raped me.
Okay.
And I remember going home fucking terrified, shitting myself, like fucking bleeding, and you know, I remember going out to my mum asking her for a tub of pseudo cream, and she was like, "What do you want that for?" And I was like, "Shut your fuck!" Like, I lost it with my mum.
What age were you at that time?
I was about maybe 15, 16, yeah, like, and then probably younger actually, yeah, I don't know, couldn't give you an exact, yeah, about 15 maybe, 15 or 16. And I remember just kind of going through all that, and I was just so frightened of everything, and then I just shut up shop. I didn't want to let anybody in because the people I trusted let me down. You know, I was rejected by my family. The John's Ambulance didn't want to know. Like, I spent fucking years on the street sleeping rough. You know,
did you ever get caught up in the heroin scene when you were on the streets?
No, I didn't. That's mad. Like,
because it's a pure pain relief.
Massively.
You know what I mean?
So you know, the only thing I ever did that was a bit, like, from a substance misuse perspective, would be probably just gargle. Drink, you know, the odd time it was really bad. I drink, but I wasn't a street drinker.
But you didn't end up in addiction.
No,
that's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't, and I was just because I was too busy. I remember like messing and like fucking robbing tourists. To be like, "Do you want me to take your picture?"
Yeah.
Fuck on. Legging it away, clean. I remember I got the shit kicked down with me. We basically stole his camera off what was the fucking human Terminator from America. And I thought deadly on my way. And the fucker must have been in the US Marines or something. He was launching over cars and walls. And I thought, oh, I'd be gone. He fucking battered me. He was like, you know, and as he hit me, and I was like, what, 15 or something. And he went, America, what? And then took his camera back. And I was just like,
you picked on the wrong yank that day.
I'm in a heap like that on the ground. Fuck me.
You knew that
Blood,
there.
black eye, blood everywhere, fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, I never ended up in addiction or even like involved in kind of anything kind of criminality or anything like that, because I didn't trust anybody. And I think you need to kind of, I think a lot of, in Dublin especially, a lot of the lads would have been using in groups or in pairs, or they would have been going scoring together and all that. And I was just a bit of a fucking loner, because I wasn't, I'd nothing to relate to anybody, you know, because I was under 18. I wasn't in and out of, you know, any prisons or anything like that. So even when you're sitting there and lads will be like, oh yeah, I was on that wing and I was locked up for there. They sent me to Limerick and then Cork, and then I got the shit kicked down in Cork because I'm from Dublin, and then I ended up back up in the Joy, and then they sent me to Wheefield and all, and I'm there like that, yeah, right, yeah, and I couldn't relate, didn't know it. Like I think I'm the only male in my immediate family that wasn't in jail. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Now I spent the odd night or weekend in a cell. But
what was your life like when you were on the streets, if you weren't involved in the criminality or the drugs?
Lonely.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Lonely, pure lonely. And you know, for me, I would have just, as a, you know, growing up and just spending time just on my own, sitting there. You know, I used to kind of hide in the bushes in Stephen's Green, and you know, or I'd end up sleeping somewhere else, get moved on from there, and then I'd get lifted by the cops because I was a bit cheeky. You know, they'd be like, I'm directing you in the section, whatever, I'm directing you to fuck off, and then you're getting the head kicked off you again, and a night in the cell, and then you get fined, and then you're back out on the streets and you're walking around, and it's quite transient. You know, accessing or navigating homeless services in Dublin, because you're ringing up the free phone number, the homeless free phone, for looking for a bed. If you're lucky, you'll get into like Santa Maria. But you're going into a room, probably about the same size as this room here, and there's like 10 bunk beds. And you just pick a bed, and that's it.
Do you know, I'm thinking here in my mind, and I'm saying, how does somebody live on the streets, you know, as you did, and, you know, cope with all the feelings and emotions of it, you know, without a substance, you know. You know, like, I suppose everything that happened, you can probably remember, and I'd say you must have saw some mad fucking situations, shit happening on the streets, like.
Yeah, like, I got the shit kicked down me a few times, I've been stabbed, I've been fucking, do you know what I mean? Like, my face is covered in scars, because I was cheeky, I never backed down from anybody. I'll be honest, I wasn't the best fighter, but I wouldn't, not in a million years, back down, and I'd be very much, right then, come on, and I'd be taking on like 5 blokes, and I'd be getting the absolute granny knocked out of me. And like, you know, and then like eventually like the lads, like if some of them would leave you alone, but then some of them would prey on you, you know, they'd be like, oh, there's a young fella, you know, I'm going to take his sleeping bag. Do you know what I mean? Or I'm going to take his trainers. And yeah, I remember like tying my trainers going to sleep, you know, together, so that if someone did try and take them when I was sleeping, that they wouldn't be able to get them, you know, without me kind of noticing or waking me up. It's just kind of, it was quite sad. It was very lonely, and I was, you know, I think it was difficult, you know, very, very difficult.
How long were you in the St. John's ambulance for?
Oh, nearly 10 years, yeah.
So were you homeless when you were in the...
Yeah, towards the end, yeah. It was mad, like, because I remember reporting to the John's ambulance what happened to me. And the child protection officer rings me on her phone, and she's like, tell me what happened. Didn't have the decency to even meet me. And then the assistant commissioner, he met me in a hotel, told me if I kept my mouth shut.
A commissioner to the guard?
The assistant commissioner to the John's ambulance. They're the same kind of ranking structure as the guards. Yeah. And he showed me an envelope full of cash, and he said, if I kept my mouth shut, that'll be there for you every month. And I was like, fuck you. And I lost it. It was in a hotel, and he actually met me, brought me to the hotel, sat in the hotel. I flipped the table and everything, got fucking dragged out by security. Do you know what I mean? And even now, within the organisation, people are very much aware of that incident because it was talked about amongst everybody, and no one was really willing to accept what happened. You know, they weren't willing to accept that there was a systemic issue of safeguarding, because there was no one that really wanted to kind of challenge the senior leadership team within that organisation.
Do you know your abuser? Was he senior?
One of the top dogs, yeah. Like, he was responsible for the first aid at Lansdowne Road.
And had he access to multiple children?
Yeah, and community groups. I don't know whether you saw Lynn Rowan in the Shannon there last week or the week before.
Yeah.
And she gets up and turns out that he was also using his position to access other community groups. So when the John's Ambulance wasn't meeting, he was down there in the guise of the John's Ambulance providing support. But what he was doing, he was probably looking to groom. And that's very much at the early stages, and I think that will probably be explored by the inquiry that's being led by Dr. Jeffrey Shannon.
Have you met any other victims of his?
Yeah.
Similar stories?
Yeah. Older than me.
When did it end? What age?
Oh, I think it was about 16 when it ended, yeah, 16 maybe.
Do you know, when you're a big man, do you know, like, when you're 15, 16, is it just the fear he has over you that, like, it goes on that
No,
late?
he violently,
Restrained you.
yeah, face down into a pillow, fucking, he tried to get me into a room. I foolishly thought he needed something there. I was trying to help. And yeah, pinned me down, beat the shit out of me, like, actually fucking, like, digging me, you know, as he was, fucking penetrating me, and I just fucking couldn't believe it. I was crying into this pillow.
Yeah,
and then he fucking then decided that it was like nothing happened. Right, come on now, I'll get you home. And I sat there in the fucking ambulance with him, froze. Like, and the mad thing about all this is the John's Ambulance actually photoshopped them out of their photos. There's like they did a 100-year celebration of the John's Ambulance in Ireland, and there was a picture of all the senior officers, and he's photoshopped out of it.
Did you ever get an apology from St. John's Ambulance?
No, not a proper one. No, I've had people reach out to me, former members, current serving members. We're sorry that happened to you, but not an official apology. You know, they've not made any effort to, engage with the victims. They've not made any effort to provide the victims with any support.
Did you ever approach him as an adult?
Yeah, I got arrested outside his house.
Go away.
Yeah. Fucking lost it.
Can imagine.
Fucking lost it, yeah. I tried to kick his door in.
Where is he now?
Still at home, still in his gaff, still in the same place, still alive. He's probably late 80s, early 90s now, I think. Yeah, he'd be about 90, I think. But like, Tussa did an investigation into him, and like, Tussa's investigations are almost forensic, because you know what they're like. They don't like to make decisions because they don't want to be wrong, and they don't want to open themselves up for litigation. And they did a retrospective investigation into him for what I went through, and that went on for years. And then in November last year, after he appealed it, the allegations against him were founded. You know.
And tell me this, with him being so old, right, if he died in the morning, would the case be stopped at that, or
no,
would St. John's Ambulance still be?
No, I think if he died in the morning, then every newspaper in the country would write about it, because then they can name him.
Okay.
I'm very lucky that the journalist Jack Power has been quite proactive in highlighting this case.
Well done, Jack.
Yeah, like massive, really kind of highlighting it to the point where we've uncovered more stuff that will be out in the press in a couple of days, and it's crazy. There really was a systemic issue of, child sexual abuse, and there was a cover-up within the organisation.
Do you know, when you say systemic, does that mean that there was multiple people within
More
the
than
organisation?
One, yeah, there was more than one.
Yeah.
More than one.
There was, I ask something here. No, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But I watched a podcast. You know, James English. He's Scottish guy. He has a very good podcast actually. We had this gangster fella on. He's kind of an entrepreneur now. His name is Lambo, I think his name is. Is this his nickname?
Aaron Lamb.
Yeah.
Yes.
He has this scar on his
Tattoos all over
face.
his face.
He was speaking about he'd similar experience to yourself. He was raped, and it led to kind of complications in his adulthood in terms of going to the toilet and not being able to hold it and stuff like that. Is that a thing? Is that common for men who've been raped as children to have those issues later?
Well, I can only comment on myself. So yes, I do have problems. I've had a couple of operations, on my back passage to help me basically not shit the bed. That's the only way I can put it. Where there were issues around incontinence. There's still issues around that. But I didn't know there was anything wrong with me until I ended up in a hospital in England with sepsis. I was in a heap, and then they were checking me out, and then they were looking at why is this there and why, and then I had a massive infection in my back passage where they actually had to remove some tissue, because there was a massive abscess there from the assault, and I was just like, fucking hell, and I'm gonna have to live with that for the rest of my life.
See, that's something that like you'd hear that people have been abused as children, but we never really hear about what that actually means down the line, you know what I mean? And I think it's huge credit to you that you're open about it, because I think men watching this and watch your other interviews and stuff, like, it's probably the first time they've ever heard anybody articulate their experience, And
I'm only able to do that because of the support and treatment I received in England through mental health services, because previously I wouldn't fucking tell anybody. I was ashamed of it. I remember like being in England and dating girls, and fucking like literally there would be I'd be like, I have to go to the toilet, and I'd be in the toilet for ages trying to clean myself up. And I was so embarrassed to even go to the doctor and get help to kind of see, well, why is this happening? And ultimately it was happening because I was a victim of sexual assault and rape as a child. And then you got to look at the psychological impact that has on you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to.
Yeah, a lot of trauma. Like I remember, bless her, like we're still mates, an ex-girlfriend of mine, and I'd be in bed, and then I'd be like, like just literally like screaming, and she'd be fucking shitting herself. Like she'd be thinking I'm gonna knock the head off her, and like, and she was really patient with me. Came to counselling sessions with me in London, that type of thing, and was very supportive. But the impact of the trauma that I experienced is still sometimes there in the background. If someone touches my neck, I flinch. Yeah. Nightmares, flashbacks, a certain smell just triggers it.
Post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. I was going up to Belfast to get me a AstraZeneca injection. I called it a soup run because I was getting the vaccine off the Brits, but
have you got a British passport as well or something?
No. No. But like I was on the train and I just started, this smell hit me and I just started bawling my eyes out. And I started to kind of get a flash on the train. Thankfully there was no one around because it was COVID and all that. And the train guard's like, "You alright?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm grand, thanks." There's still like I'm able to kind of talk about it, because the more I talk about it, the more I take back from him, because that's power. Yeah. Then I become more confident in communicating what happened to me, how it happened to me. The impact that has on friendships, relationships.
What about your own view of sexuality? Did it ever kind of hit your minds? Like, did it affect who you thought you were sexually?
No, because I always liked birds. Like, do you know what I mean? There was never any kind of, Jesus, I wouldn't mind a bit of dick. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was very much kind of like, very much,
because that does happen. Like,
it does happen.
It does happen to men.
But sometimes, like when you're a child, maybe younger children anyway, like if something happens,
It affects them, yeah.
They think it's all about them. They draw them on. You know, that's common.
I did blame myself. I did, like, for a long time I thought, did I do anything wrong? Did I bring this on myself? Was it me? But the reality is it's not. You know, it's nothing to do with anything you've done. Because you're a child. And children are blameless in those situations. Anyone is blameless in that situation if they're victims of sexual assault, you know, or rape, regardless if they're man, woman or child. Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, for me, I didn't struggle with my sexuality. I didn't struggle with kind of, you know, what do I identify as. I think what I struggled with was intimacy, you know, as I got older. Because I didn't trust anybody. Because I was afraid. I was terrified.
But you learned in your childhood like that. Adults were bad news, you know what I mean?
Pretty much. I didn't trust anyone. Like, even when I was in London, and lads were trying to be my mates, and they were like, "Oh my God," and then they never called me Mick. They refused to call. They made up a nickname for Finners, and they're all these like real posh lads because I was playing rugby with the Bank of England. All these like fucking lad, they're all loaded like, you know. Oh my God, Finners, we're having a barbecue in the house. Do you want to come over, bring some brewskis and all this shit? And I'm like, what the fuck are you on about? Like, and I wouldn't let anybody in. I was just so distant with everyone. And then if people were trying to be my mates, I'd put up a front.
What's the motive behind it?
Completely.
Yeah, and I can relate to that 100%.
Why do they want to be my mate?
Yeah.
Sure, I've got nothing to offer them.
Yeah.
And it's just...
We couldn't see our own self-worth. That was the thing. So you're saying, what have I got to offer? Like, we don't see our own self-worth. We're so caught up in our own heads, criticising ourselves, you know. And shame then is an awful thing as well. I think Irish men carry a lot of shame.
I think as well we have to understand like that we're human beings and we have an inherent value in that alone, you know. But when you're from backgrounds like yourself, that's taken from you, you know, and it takes a lot of work to get that back.
Massively. And I was going, like, when I was in psychiatric care in England, I was fucking absconding, I was escaping from hospitals, going on the run. Like, there was like, I was reported missing, there was a hashtag find Mick Finn, and like, I was like proper, like, you know, like wanted, you know. And I remember I was like living feral in Hyde Park. Everyone was like looking for me, and I was sleeping rough and eating out of bins in the park, thinking no one will find me here. And then 2 cops found me and brought me back to the hospital. Do you know what I mean? But it took years of kind of therapy and treatment and getting the right support.
How did you end up in the psychiatric hospitals in England? What happened there?
Oh, I had a breakdown, didn't I? I ended up
losing it.
Oh fuck yeah, like proper snapped one night, and I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna end my life. That's it, I'm gone. So I thought I'd climb a bridge in London, and I went up and climbed the bridge, and it was one of the main transport links into central London. So I shut down pretty much half of that transport network for the Greater London area. Ended up in a 4-hour standoff with the Metropolitan Police. They thought it was like some sort of, you know, initially I think they thought it was an attack, and then they didn't, and then it was like, Jesus, and then cops be shouting, fucking jump, and like all that stuff, and then the negotiator was there, and I just had a complete breakdown, and it was just because I couldn't
handle the emotions.
Couldn't handle the emotion, didn't love myself, hated everything about me. I just wanted to escape from the reality that I was living in. And then the fella that got me off the streets in Dublin, he gave me a job working in London. That's how I ended up over there.
Do you know, you were actually dealing with all that shit, right? Without a substance or alcohol in your life. Like, that's what we would have used, and a lot of other people would have used substances and alcohol. Do you know, to block out all that.
I would have drank a bit, but I wouldn't have been like...
There was no chronic addiction, like...
No, I wouldn't have to wake up in the morning and have to do a bottle of wine just to get the DTs away or anything like that. Very much kind of... I was a bit like a really mad roller coaster. There were days where I was just so happy and hyper, and everything's fine, and nothing's gonna happen, and you know, praise Jesus, all this shit, right? And the next time, you know, down there, like, fuck everybody, fuck you, fuck it, and I'd be like proper, just so angry.
Yeah.
And then eventually, when I got in the hospital, they explained that actually that makes perfect sense. You've actually got bipolar. They diagnosed me that, and they put me on loads of meds, which didn't agree with me like at all, because like some of the medication that I was on made me more chaotic and more, just mad.
Can you tell us just briefly a little bit about bipolar disorder, what that actually is, the symptoms?
It affects everybody differently, do you know what I mean? For me, it's where I get kind of periods of mania to the point where I feel like I'm bulletproof. You know, like I'm just like, chest down, like, yeah, it's deadly. Do you know what I mean? And it's like proper. And then you're like, boom, right down. It's almost like having the fear. You know when you've had a rake of drink at the weekend or something, when you wake up on the Sunday morning, you're like, geez, I can't remember ranting. Did I kiss your one in the office? Like, you know, you're proper panicking if you did something. And it's a bit like that for me anyway. And it was just like, that's what they diagnosed you in the hospital, bipolar, PTSD and emotionally unstable personality disorder. That's what they were, the labels that they gave me when I was in the psychiatric care in the UK.
Did the medication help you at all?
Yeah.
Are you on medication today?
I am,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked with somebody and he had bipolar disorder, but it was diagnosed, you know, when he was in his 40s, like. But the medication changed his life, you know.
Saved my life.
Yeah.
Saved my life because I was able to then manage it. So then I ended up on a really high dose, and now I'm on quite a low dose, and I just manage that daily. And I still do a bit of talking therapy. So once a month I'll check in with a psychiatrist.
Very healthy thing to do.
And just shoot the breeze and talk to him about how I'm feeling and how this month went. You know, like this month's going great because, you know, my place in Trinity College was confirmed, and I got an unconditional offer to study social work in September, so I'm kind of buzzing about that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So you should, Trinity and all that.
Yeah, I know, Trinners for winners. That's what they say.
Trinners for finners.
I tell you.
Lynn Rowan went there, she was president,
Lynn was the SU president there. Lynn's a really good friend of mine. She's been very, very helpful and very vocal about the child sexual stuff, sexual abuse stuff in the John's Ambulance. She's been a very big advocate and holding that organisation to account.
Lynn was on the podcast herself. Yeah.
Did she come down?
She came down to us, so Timmy's shed.
No way!
Yeah, she did.
You're quite similar in personality. She's so bubbly, you know, she's really strong. She knows exactly what she's here for, you know, and you've so much, like, you look like you've so much confidence. For me to not to know you and see how confident you are and outgoing, and, you know, just there's a good vibe off you, and then to hear yours. I actually was going to, I had to keep in the tears there while I know, I could, like I did, you know, because it was I don't know what to say it, really, but
it's just it's a very emotional story, like. But you're you've got a great energy about you.
Thanks. I think for me, the reason that I wouldn't say stable, but the reason I am the way I am is because if I was any other way, that fucker won. So if I can go on and live a life that's fulfilled, where I can try and make a little bit of a difference in life, where I can try and make a difference in the community that I live in, where I can look at the child safeguarding issues within the John's Ambulance, get my social work qualification, maybe one day even get married. I fucking won. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way I look at it. And it took a long time for me to kind of really get to that point, because a lot of the time I blamed everybody. Me ma, me dad, brothers, me sister, like everyone was getting blamed except they're all getting about barrels. I was like, yeah, fuck the lot of you. Like I was like, but it was me. I wasn't, you know,
there was no acceptance.
No, none. Yeah. Like it was everyone's fault but mine. Yeah. But the reality was, it was fucking, to some extent, unless I took personal responsibility for my own mental health, I would not be where I am today. I'd still be in a psych unit locked away.
Yeah, because that victim mentality will always keep you in the gutter, and it's very disempowering. And when you say, yeah, I was let down by certain people in my life, I did have a hard time, I did have a rough, but you know what, I'm an adult today and I can change it. That's very empowering. And you can say, no, fuck him, I'm going to do this, that and the other. And it's not, you will have won if you do all these things. You are winning right now. Do you know what I mean? And you have won. And you're just going to, add to the victory and compound his defeat as you go and pick up all these accolades and these achievements and stuff, Tell us a little bit about how you ended up being an advisor to the Royal Psychiatrists in England. It's a bit of a mad one, isn't it?
So I was in and out of psych hospitals, like proper, like absconding, and like I was getting restraint all the time. I was getting like IM, which is an intramuscular injection to the arse, because I was just fucking didn't want to take me meds, didn't want to talk about how I felt, basically not taking personal responsibility. And then one day I did, and I was working as a mental health peer support worker in a psych unit, so using my lived experience to encourage. It's almost like NA, but in a mental health hospital. Does that make sense? Where there's that peer-to-peer support, you know what I mean?
It's like a therapeutic community.
Completely, yeah. But you're there, like, in some hospitals I've worked in, and people are so supportive of peer support workers because the patients engage in the treatment plans, and they do then end up not getting readmitted to hospital because they're able to manage their mental health in the community, which is so much better for them. But then there's other hospitals I've worked in, and some of the staff are like, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, who let that fucking lunatic in here? Lunatic's taking over the asylum. And it's like, and they're like, literally. And I'm like, my favourite window flavour is lime. You know what I mean? But just the way, it's just the way they were. It was like so much stigma and tokenism surrounding the role. And then I saw in London that there was an advertisement for a national advisor for the Mental Health Safety Improvement Programme at the Royal College of Psychiatrists National Collaborating Centre for Mental Health. And I thought, fuck it, I'll put an application.
There's a lot of nationals in that, wasn't it?
Come here, I'm telling you. But it was like, I just put an application in and thought nothing of it. And then about a month later, I forgot about it. And a month later, I got an email going, look, we noticed that you're working in a psychiatric hospital in the north of Ireland, but the interview's in London, but if you want we can do it over Skype or Zoom or whatever it was. And I was like, nah, fuck that. In my head I was like, nah, I'm going to London. So I flew over, spent the weekend in London. I stayed with a mate of mine actually, did the interview, thought nothing of it, and then I was like, nah, I didn't get that, no way, because I was so intimidated walking into this building, the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and I was just like Mick Finnegan from the flats. Do you know what I mean? It was very much imposter syndrome was kicking in, and I was like, not thinking I was worthy and all this. And then I got the role. I got an email going, congratulations, we'd like to offer you the role, which then resulted in me then visiting and meeting with like the chief execs, directors of nursing, medical directors of different mental health hospitals across England, where I was going into these buildings and giving my experience. Have you thought about doing it like this? Have you thought about maybe doing that? And really kind of helping the hospital understand, the clinicians to understand the importance of lived experience and how it can help people on that journey.
Do you know when you started out in that role, was all the psychiatrists and clinicians on board, or was there a bit of...
So they were paying me, weren't they? They were the Royal College of Psychiatrists are the psychiatrists. If you're a psychiatrist, you have to practice in the UK.
Governing body,
they're the governing body. They're like FIFA. You know what I mean?
Who better to tell them how patients feel and what they want? Who better than the next patient? That's the way I look at it.
And I was there, and it was just unreal. But then, I was looking at how they were dressing, and they were like, and I was only in a short and.
Tweed jackets with elbow patches.
Yeah, they were. But then I went down my first meeting. I spent fucking 200 quid in a fucking tweed jacket and another 80 quid on a notepad from Smithson's on Bond Street. God! And this thing, this is one really expensive notepad, and I'm there in these meetings, sitting there looking all professional. I had no fucking clue half the time, shitting myself, and I was like, I'll be scribbling in the notepad, pretending to take notes. When I first started going to these meetings, because I was terrified to open my mouth. And then through kind of the training and the acceptance of my colleagues within the Royal College of Psychiatrists, I began to get that familiarity that when I was around the table, that I could open my mouth, that I could interject and go, actually, do you know what, I disagree with that point, and this is why. Or I agree with that and think this is what we should do to make make that difference. And it was just so empowering. And then that's when, probably for the first time, that I kind of realised my worth.
Yeah.
Know your worth.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I tell everyone, like, there's only one of you. You're priceless. And a lot of people don't understand or realise that. They think, oh, I've nothing to offer. And I'm like, come here, listen, if a fat fella from Crumlin can go over and tell the Brits how to look after them, like,
I know.
you know, how to look after themselves and stuff like that, then why can't... There's no stopping anybody.
But you know what you did as well, that a lot of people find hard. What you did, what a lot of people might find hard to do is, when an opportunity arises, take it. It's a risky thing to do. You're going out of your comfort zone, but that's where you get the results. Yeah. But sometimes it takes a lot of balls to do that as well. Like,
I remember getting the job, going back into my full-time job, telling me manager, who's like a clinical nurse manager, real kind of high up in the NHS in the north, I'm at getting a job as a national advisor. And she looked at me and she was like, yeah.
Fair play,
She thought it was still
she thought it was, she genuinely thought it was being grandiose. She thought, check and see if he took his meds today. like I was like proper, like, just, that's the way it was, you know what I mean? I was just kind of, I couldn't believe it. You know, I was kind of riding this high where I was walking around, where I was proud to be the expert by experience, because there wasn't any tokenism in the role that I was doing in London. It was amazing, because when I was talking, when I'd open my mouth, you'd have like the National Clinical Director for the NHS for mental health would be looking at me the same way you two lads are looking at me now, and literally, wow.
Yeah.
And I was just like, Jesus. And then that's where I started to become more aspirational. Then I wanted not just to be the expert by experience, I wanted to be the expert. And then that's why I went and applied to do the Access course in Trinity College, because I wanted that bit of paper to underpin my knowledge, my skills and my practice. So I wasn't just a mad lad. Do you know what I mean? I was the academic then. Do you know what I mean? And I think and that's like my motivating factor to pursue that.
I was saying to you on the phone the other day as well, like, that's a kind of a similar motivation with myself, you know, like yourself, and I was on the Tommy Tiernan show, went well and all that, but for a long time, for a good few months afterwards, anytime I was being described in the media, it was like ex-heroin user James Leonard, you know what I mean? So it was like, you know, I'd get this PhD now, it would be like criminologist James Leonard, you know what I mean? Or Dr. James, they're trying to move away. The lived experience is great and we value it and all that. But we're much more, and we can have this lived experience. We can also have great achievements and accolades and letters after our names like anybody else too.
But I think you breaking that cycle and kind of, you know, sticking your head up, you know, and going, well, I'm more than that.
Yeah.
That makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because they're like, then they start getting the imposter syndrome. Because you've got the same qualifications as them, but you've lived it as well. And that is a powerful, probably a powerful kind of visual of like the wheel of change. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're a walking, talking wheel of change because you went through that kind of, you know, contemplate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you and look at you now, and it's the same for myself. Like I'm, you know, we do make people feel uncomfortable because they don't. A lot of the time,
it's not typical. Like,
we know what the book exactly says through feeling, you know, and through experience, you know, and we could really relate to anybody that has been in our position as of previous, you know, we're ex-addicts, people that are still addicted, mental health issues, you know, wanting to commit suicide constantly. I know how that feels. James knows how it feels. You know, we can really relate. But the best part of it is when you know the theory of it and you know the lived experience of it, there's a connection between people, and there's a relationship between people that are going through it now and the person that has lived it. Yeah. That's where the change and really comes, in my opinion. That's when people say, "No, I can do this." Yeah. You know, and that's why there's such a need for you as your role, you know, and James and myself, that's why there's such a need, you know, for us to really, really, and for years I've always wanted to do something else, you know. I was always looking for what I was supposed to do, you know. But now, what we're doing now, it feels like I'm actually doing exactly what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I share my lived experience and help others that are coming up behind us, you know. And I think that's critical in other people getting recovery and getting well from mental health issues and stuff. You know?
Yeah, massively. I think, like, you know, when you're that, when you've used the lived experience, I like using the word expert by lived experience, because it really validates and reinforces what you're trying to do, because no one can take that away from you.
Yeah.
Because it's actually an academic term, which is quite hilarious. But you're an expert by lived experience. You're using your lived experience to make a real and lasting difference in someone's life. Going, well, I've done this, and this is what's happened, and it didn't turn out great for me, and I'm only sharing this with you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you the options. You know, only you can make those decisions for yourself, and that's what it's about. It's kind of getting someone to almost reflect on the choices before they make those decisions that ultimately maybe send them down a difficult path. You know?
You're going to make an unbelievable social worker. Like, I tell you now, you're going to add so much to that classroom and that course and that campus in general. You know, and they're lucky to have you. And I know you didn't get in there easy. You fought hard for it.
Oh, like I was shitting it, like, you know. It was I remember when I was on campus and I got the news from Tussle. I got the letter off them and everything about the findings, and I saw my dad and I said, look, I thought you were living in London. I says, no, I'm studying in Trinity. Oh, here we go. How much do you need? Like, literally, he thought I was like hitting them up for a loan or something, or trying to rip them off or whatever. And I said, no, I'm genuinely studying there. And he goes, we'll see about that, won't we? And no joke, he rang me one day. He goes, right, where are you? I'm here. I was like, I'm in a lecture. Don't care, come on. So I left the lecture, went down. He was in the front square. And he was like, oh, that was fucking true. Right, come on, show us around. So I take him around the campus and I'm showing him everything. And he's looking around. He's like, and I bring him into this building. It's called the museum building. It's very ornate and it's beautiful and it's a stunning building. It's one of my favourite buildings on the campus. And he's looking up and he's like, fucking hell, I'm not paying for this. And I was like, and I was like, don't worry about it, it's grand. And then that relationship started to kind of repair
together,
because of the Tussle report. And he was devastated. He was so apologetic about, you know, what happened and all that stuff. And we'd meet up and have the crack. And I remember he was telling the lads in the Black Forge in Crumlin, oh yeah, he's trying to be a doctor, yeah. Doctor. My son, Trinity College, yeah.
Oh, he's proud.
Like, proper, like, and I was just buzzing, like, you know, like, but then I didn't like the fact that some old lads actually thought he was serious, and they were coming up to me, showing me their fucking rashes. What do you think that is? I was like, get the fuck away from me. Like, proper. And it was just fucking, it was mad, like, and then I'll actually show you a picture, like, yeah, I got a picture of us on the campus, and he's like, come on, get a picture with me, will you, because they won't believe it. And there we are. Don't know whether you can see that.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Like, on the front square in Trinity College, and he's like, and he's shouting at the security fella who took it. He's like, here, Specky, take that picture. And your man there, the security guard's like, like, and he was going around showing it to everyone, and then, you know, I was really happy that I got to have that time with him. But he passed away in August, just gone.
Ah, fuck it.
Yeah, I was fucking devastated.
But at least you know what, at least it was on good terms.
I tell you what, the fact that I was able to make amends with him, and like I took him to the pavilion in the college bar, and it's all like, oh my god, pint of high now? Who ordered the creamer? You know, like, wait, that's like, and I'd be there like, Dad would like, just get me a fucking pint. I'm sitting there drinking, and he just loved it, you know. He was just, Yeah, he was proud of me, you know, and eventually because of that Tussler report, you know, that really enabled him to put himself in a situation where he was vulnerable and say sorry and to make that amends. And like, I was just totally fucking blown away by it, you know.
Was the Tussler report a validation of everything you had said?
Massively, yeah. So he read it and he just couldn't believe it. Like, he broke down crying.
I can imagine.
So sorry, I'm so sorry. Kept saying sorry about 1 million times. I was like, if you say sorry again, I'm going to walk away. I was, I'm sorry. I was like, right, fuck off. And I'll go back. Do you want a point? And like, yeah, and then like, but it enabled us then to have that
relationship.
I got my dad back. If that makes sense. I kind of almost revered to being a fucking 10-year-old kid sitting next to him. He's there like holding my hand and he's like, right, what are we going to do next week? I'll tell you what, I'll take you into town, we'll go to a pub. There's a pub there and all my mates, the barman, and look after you. And he was like proper, and then he was so supportive. You know, we'll go and he'd be like checking up on me going, did you do your assignments?
He was probably never in Trinity in his life.
Never even through the front, and he said that to me, it's the first time I've been in this college.
So I brought, when I graduated my masters there last February, it was just before COVID, it was in person, you know.
Congratulations.
But I brought my dad, and it was very weird, do you know what I mean? Because it's in Latin and there were robes and all these things. Like, it was just and my nephew as well. So I just want to show my nephew as well, like, that this is there for you too. Do you know what I mean? It's not just posh kids do this. You know, it has to be accessible for everybody. And there might be perception of people like us in the backgrounds we're from, the neighbourhoods we're from, that we're maybe less intelligent than others, but we're not. We just have more obstacles, and we're able to achieve now because we either got a lucky break or we had services to help us. But there's loads of people with the same smarts as us that may never get the achievements that we get because they just have obstacles. They don't get the breaks, or they maybe don't get the help along the way. But there's loads of intelligence in Dolphins Barn and in Knocknaheeny and in Chico and all these places, you know.
Unbelievable intelligence. And if only they got the opportunity to realise their potential, because loads of them have potential. Do you know what I mean? Which is probably why some of them end up kind of going down that criminality route, and why some of them become actually quite successful criminals. Yeah, because they have that intelligence to make the decisions that they need to make at the right time to be lucrative. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, and if they or manage to harness that in a different way, they could be doctors, they could be scientists, accountants, business leaders.
In do you know, when I was doing my bachelor's degree, we learned this word called meritocracy. IQ plus effort equals merit. So the government like to espouse the idea that we live in a meritocratic society, that if, no matter who you are in Ireland, if you're smart enough and if you work hard enough, you will achieve. That's only relevant if everybody starts at the same spot. But you could have Mary from Dolphins Barn, the hardest working young one in Ireland, the most intelligent young one in Ireland, but all that work ethic and intelligence goes into making sure the siblings are safe, that the food is on the table, that there's a roof over the head, and that's where the intelligence and the energy goes. If all them things was looked after, guarantee Mary's going to Trinity, 100%, but she'll never get there because it's all the other.
And it's the same with, like, I would have watched people that I did the access course with, and there was so much other stuff that was in the way. You know, there was lads that were single parents, there were people that had other issues like money, rent, food, and they were more stressed about getting that sort than looking after their assignments and stuff like that. You know, and like the reality is, I think there was a HEI, is it?
Higher Education Authority.
Yeah, there was a survey done. I think something like 4% of students that are in higher education come from socioeconomically deprived areas. 4%.
4%, yeah. A lot of them would be probably mature students as well.
There'd be lads like say in recovery. They'd be on a SUSI grant. Yeah. They'd be on maybe a disability allowance. They'd be on the HAP. So they have. Like if you're a student and you're on disability allowance and you're getting the HAP, you're a rich student. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you're loaded, walking into campus making it rain. Yeah. But like, most people don't get those opportunities or have that available to them. You know what I mean? And I think there should be something done where
it should be the next step.
Absolutely. I think it should be done where colleges have to be proactive in allowing and giving opportunities where, all right, well, say if the kid or the person who wants to study doesn't have the money, that's okay. Yeah, there was a time in this country where third level education was free. You know, that was an automatic right for anybody. If they wanted to go, away you go.
But you know, you talk about something there, you know, like if you're from a disadvantaged background, you can get funding and grants and stuff like that, but still doesn't mean that people from our areas go to college, you know what I mean? And Lynn Wayne talks a lot about that.
How many hoops do you have to jump through to get a bit of funding or a grant?
I know.
Like the application forms are done in a way where you have to write a supporting statement, then you have to get references, then you have to be suitable.
And the SUSI system then is nightmare, isn't it?
That's near enough impossible. Like when I came out of prison and I had to complete a SUSI grant, you know, and this is somebody, I never even filled out an application in my life. This was probably the first one I ever filled out. I actually nearly stopped the whole process of wanting to go to college because of this application. It just took so much out of me because they kept coming back to me, asking me for more information, and I was only out of prison and I didn't know what else to give them and I didn't know whether it would have been a good idea to clarify that I was been in prison for the last nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't know. You know, it's really difficult process.
Yeah. Like I remember filling out the SUSI and they were like, "Can you send us your bank account details?" And I was like, "For what?" To see if you're like wealthy or see if you're hiding cash. And I was like, "Grand." And they were asking me about like a mate of mine who I gave €50 to once on a night out or something, put it back into my account. And like, and what's this? Could you explain this transaction, please?
I know.
And I'm like, it's just here, come on. Yeah. I don't think they mean it or do it on purpose.
No.
Oh, it's just set up for traditional students, like young fella 17 does his leaving cert and goes into college. It's set up for him. Do you know what I mean? But any deviation from the norm, like I was a mature student, you know, I'd stayed in my mother's house for one of the previous 5 years, so I wasn't assessed as an independent adult. So I was assessed on the household income, which means I wasn't getting funded from SUSI.
Jesus.
I had to beg, borrow and steal. I was getting money off charities in Cork here, and like it's already imposter syndrome in UCC, you know, and then the assignments are not fucking easy either.
No.
And then you've the added pressure of the fees officer threatening to cut you from the library if you don't pay your fees in time, and then you're trying to get it from charities and begging.
I call it bluff, like, do it. Do it.
You don't want to do that because you know what, you're just under so much pressure.
Oh, stop!
Know?
It's horrible. It is horrible. No. Like I struggle. I didn't get SUSI. You know, in my second, like when I did the Access course, and then I ended up doing a year of philosophy. I didn't get the SUSI. Like they were like, well, you know, you need to prove that you don't have X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. And
they were like, have you got copies of, or can you prove that your bank accounts in the UK are closed? And I was like, we're in the middle of a bleeding global pandemic. What am I going to just jump over and say, here, can you stamp this form for me? Because the education authority thinks I'm trying to pull a fast one.
I know.
There's easier ways to make money, lads.
I know.
Yeah.
But look, what's the future hold for you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Hopefully, with a degree.
I'll have a degree in social work in 5 years' time, and I'd hopefully either be doing a master's or a PhD by that stage. Hopefully.
Excellent.
Because I do want to kind of look at possibly changing or challenging how we deal with retrospective disclosures for adults, you know, child protection as a whole, looking at how we can kind of support the victims, because it's very much heavily in favour of the perpetrator. You know, if you're the adult complainant, I hate that fucking word, adult complainant. You know, when we just say person or victim, or, you know, adult complainant sounds quite...
Yeah.
And it's
like you're a thorn.
But you're a thorn on the side and you're being uttered. And if you're being uttered, then you're kind of almost being looked down on. Do you know what I mean? You're a human being.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be treated any differently because of the trauma that you experienced as a child, going into a system where you're looking for that support now at a later stage and they're not really that interested in you. You know, so I'd like to look at kind of how we change that, because I remember the referral from the HSC went in 2011, but no one contacted me until 2018.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And and when I first reported, it was back in the late 90s.
How did it take so long?
Waiting lists, gets lost. Still trying to figure that out at the moment, actually. I'm wrecking everyone's head.
Probably an old pinch of corruption as well. You know,
maybe a little bit of that, who knows?
People be covering up for people as well, like that's
possibly,
common,
possibly there is that. Like for me, what I wouldn't like to happen is for someone that experienced the same stuff that I went through, and then not to be believed, and not to be supported, and to be put in a situation where they're marginalised even further. And I hate when people that are marginalised already are marginalised by the organisations that were set up to protect them, to safeguard them, to ensure that their immediate needs are being met. Absolutely hate that. And I think that needs to change. You know, we need to be more accessible. We need to be listening to the victims and quite frankly, you know, it should be nothing about us without us. You know, the victims should be in there shaping service delivery, looking at what does it look like, how would you feel about this situation, you know, because it's a horrible situation to be in. You're going into a room, you're being sat down opposite two social workers and you're pouring your heart out to them, and then they're like, right, there's a couple of free phone numbers you can ring if you're feeling distressed, can you please leave? Like, and there's me like nearly bawling my eyes out.
Do you know what you could do actually? And I could see you doing it. Students' Union, Trinity, Shannon, Senator, like Lynn Wan, and carry her advocacy in, because she carry her advocacy in through there, and now she gets bills passed in there that you'd never come across around for drug users, for people with convictions that nobody in probably most of the other centres don't give a shit about. Do you know what I mean? But when you've working class people in there, do you know what I mean? I think that
maybe watch the space. I thought politics never really kind of interested me, but I am passionate about being an advocate, and to the point where, you know, I can get the evidence base, do the research, and go, well, actually, this is what we should be doing.
You're already the advocate. All you need to do is just apply for
get
the
a bigger
position.
platform now.
That's it. The advocacy is there. It's just pushing it. Just go that way. Yeah. Do you know?
That's the plan, lads. That is the plan, you know.
Watch the space.
Yeah.
Pretty much, Well, look, come here. You know, I was chatting with the psychiatrist there. What was it, a few months ago, and he said if a nuclear bomb went off, Mick, it'd be you and the cockroaches left. Do you know what I mean? Because he was just joking about the fact that, like, you know, I've experienced what I've experienced, and I'm still proactive, still going. You know, wrecking everyone's heads. Like, I'd be ringing politicians all the time, dropping them emails. Can I have the minutes of that meeting? Can I have the minutes of that meeting? Remember when we spoke about that last time? Did you do that? Can you show me a copy of the letter you sent out? Then if that's the case. You know, and it's about holding them accountable, because ultimately they are elected representatives. Yeah. And I think a lot of the time people don't hold them to account enough, because if they did, I think more stuff would get done.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
And I think, do you know, if people are watching this podcast and they can relate with you, would it be okay if they could contact you maybe?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter, Mick Finnegan.
Yeah, right, so thanks a million for coming down to meet us, Mick.
Lads, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
No, it was a pleasure for us too. It was an honour for it to come down. As I said, like, a lot of the guests will be able to identify with your experiences, and a lot of the guests will have laughed and cried watching this. It was one of the best podcasts we've done, I think. And I'm not going to waffle on, because I know I have to get you on the last train home.
But what I will say to anyone that is listening, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you've experienced, life does get better. Because ultimately, it's not where you start that matters, it's where you finish that counts.
Exactly.
And you have the potential to do and achieve great things. Yeah,
well said, and a good note to finish on. Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, Timmy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rowan. And we'll see everybody again next week. See you later. Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to head over to the Patreon if you'd like to help us. Thanks again.